All right, viewers. I hit the play button 10 minutes late, but this is the Balance Through Art show. My name is Austin Joseph Madsen, and tonight we're going to talk about the life cycle we all go through. If you don't know what that is, then stay tuned. You're about to find out. No commercial breaks either. So maybe you can't handle that. Maybe you need like that distraction. So, all right. So that song I played for you for the longest time was just like, you know how we all kind of have our own little theme song that kind of is like, oh, that's my life, you know? Well, that was my life. Everything I do, I hit a wall. And what I meant by that was, well, multiple things. I'm an endurance runner. And anyone who's run a long distance or even short distances, there's a point where your energy level just gets depleted. And it's this thing called hitting the wall. You physically feel like you can't go any further, and it's impossible. But that song is why I've been a jack of all trades, master of none, or describes why, kind of. So, from a very young age, when I was a kid, I just love learning. You know, Bill Nye the Science Guy was my favorite show. I love the Magic School Bus, all that fun stuff. PBS, pretty much grew up on that. Oh, total nerd. And and my parents are really smart too. And well, yes, no, they are. I don't know why I paused. Yes. But being a very curious kid, I was interested in a lot of different things. But in a society where it's like just need to pick one thing and be good at it, as I got older, I was like, oh, I don't know what that is. And I remember I'm like some people have like the midlife crisis. I think all of us 20-somethings, we have the quarter life crisis, right? We're like in school or like thinking about going to school, like what do I do with my life? And in my despair, I called my mom, and so my parents live in Ohio, and I live here. And I was like, Mom, can you, like, send me some, like, because, like, she was a big scrapbooker, and, like, would just collect all of her little projects at school. She's like, hey, I'm like, can you, like, send me some of, like, my old school projects and stuff so I can maybe get an idea of, like, what I love to do as a kid, and maybe I'll just do that as an adult, you know? I'll never forget this. So in a lot of, like, classes, they'll have, like, the student spotlight. Like, what's your favorite color? Red, white, and blue. What's your favorite food? All of the pizza. You know? So my mom sends me this spotlight, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, oh, there's going to be, like, that one question, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? So I'm, like, reading through, like, who's your favorite superhero? Michelangelo, the Ninja Turtle. Yeah, blah, blah. I'm going down, and then I get to, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's blank. Yeah, I guess I'm like, maybe I thought I was never going to grow up. So I was like, I'll just be a Ninja Turtle, you know. But yeah, so into my adulthood, I would try something and be interested for a while. But with anything, as you start to like dive deeper into whatever it is, you kind of start to hit these walls where it's like you can either learn and like get over it and like keep progressing with that thing, or you can just hit that wall and go on to something else. And so that's what I did. And it quickly became apparent to me like this was not going to work in the long run. And so about 6 years ago, I was going through a really dark time. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that like came out of left field. I'm like, what the heck is bipolar disorder, you know? And it's taken years to like understand what it is and how it affects me and what works and what doesn't work. And so this actually came into being about 6 years ago when I was going through a really just crazy time. And in terms of like bipolar, it's what you call a manic episode. And in a manic episode, basically, well, I'll describe. Yes. So a lot of people aren't even sure exactly what bipolar disorder is. So I'll give you what it is to me, because it's different for everybody that has it. So the way I describe it is, I was living a happy, normal life like a kid, right? And then high school hits, and I'm an open book. I got addicted to pornography, and it was really hard. And I came from a very, like, Christian moral values kind of family, and so that's a big no-no. Biblically, any kind of sexual sin is, like, right up there with murder, you know? And, so as a, horny little 15-year-old, I'm like, well, I'm not going to go around sleeping with girls, so what's the next best thing? Trying to justify it, getting into the gory details. But anyway, I got addicted. And for about a year, severely addicted. And I went from being a very productive, energetic kid to super depressed. And it got to a point where I was actually thinking about taking my own life because I had no handle on it and no one knew about it. And I was just like in the dark. But I didn't want to die. And so I told my parents about it and got some help from my church. And it was like this light just like came pouring back into my life. And it was shortly after that experience was when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And over the years, I've kind of made this correlation. And kind of what I figured out was, at least my case was, I went from, I don't know if you're spiritual or religious or not, but I believe we're all kind of like conduits for God to flow through us in our own unique talents and ways. And when you get wrapped up in some kind of addiction, it doesn't even have to be necessarily like a bad thing, but just addiction in general, it's a very debilitating feeling. You're like, I want to stop doing this, but I can't. And it's like you don't even have control over your own life. And I promise this will all come full circle. But so I went from being, as a kid, like this conduit for, the spirit to kind of just flow through and with no resistance. When you're a kid, you love someone, you give them a hug, you don't think twice about it. As you get older and you get into high school, there's these like physical barriers, these like unwritten rules, like you just don't touch people anymore, And that's why it's so awkward to like hold someone's hand. You're like, oh my gosh, is this okay? I don't know. But basically, we go from being these like open conduits to we let our walls or our little dams kind of start building up. If you think about it like maybe a little stream. And it's self-doubt. These little bricks or rocks kind of start piling up in that little stream of love, And next thing you know, you have a wall or a dam blocking the flow. And so in my case, for a year, that flow was blocked. But if, I'm sure a lot of you have gone recreating up at the different reservoirs. It's amazing how a very small stream can fill up a little mountainous area into a huge lake. So I basically had this lake in my mind of all these like spiritual promptings or like creative ideas I had that I wanted to do with my life. But because of my addiction and my self-doubts, like they would just cycle around and float. Occasionally they like come back to the surface of my subconscious like, hey, you should like put on a show at a nursing home. That'd be cool. No, I'm really sad. Kind of drifts back, or, oh, you should do a cool art piece and give it to your mom. Nah, I'm just gonna go to my room. And so a year of just, and so when I finally got up the courage to be like, I can't do this anymore. That dam broke. And next thing I know, that whole reservoir of thoughts and ideas just started flowing. And as a result of that, I was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night for like a month. And then it got to just not sleeping at all. And that's what eventually led to my diagnosis, This kid's having these grandiose thoughts, doesn't sleep, goes out and bikes 60 miles and doesn't think anything about it. And so, 10 years ago I was diagnosed. And so it was about 2-3 years after that, I decided to stop taking my medication because I was like, well, maybe it was a misdiagnosis. Maybe the best way to know is to stop taking them. And if it happens again, then I'll know. Well, it happened again, and now I know. And it was that second time where I had this kind of creative outburst. This came along. And basically what this is, it's a moral compass of sorts. You can imagine not sleeping for 3 days. You're dead tired, but you're almost scared to sleep. Will I wake up? Because I'm so tired, I might just pass out and not wake up, And if I sleep, then I can't get all these creative ideas out, There's no such thing as tomorrow if I don't sleep. It's all just one big day. And it just happens to get dark for 10 hours. But basically what I needed at that time was, here he is. Welcome, brother.
How you doing, man? Doing good. Yeah.
Our guest speaker, artist, has arrived. And we'll incorporate in the show, actually perfect timing. So I was at a point where I needed some sort of compass. I needed something to point me in the right direction. And so that's where this little thing came from. And I'll play another song, and then we'll get to know Matt a little bit, and we'll dive into what this is all about. So thank you, guys. What makes up the world around me? What can I really call reality? What makes up the world around me? What can I really call reality? I got a heart that beats, that feels pretty real to me. Got a heart that beats, that feels pretty real to me. I got a heart that beats, that feels pretty real to me. after all. Spirit's strong, but my body tends to fall. Strength in knowing the truth about yourself. I know I'm weak, and therein lies the truth. But since I know I'm weak, therein lies my strength. I'm a fragile man made strong through God's hand. Spirit strong, but my body tends to fall. Fragile, human after all. Spirit strong, but my body tends to fall. Fragile, human after all. Spirit strong, but my body tends to fall. Strong, but my body tends to fall. I'm fragile. I'm human after all. My spirit's strong, but my body tends to fall. I'm fragile. I'm human after all. My spirit's strong, but my body tends to fall. Thank you, guys. Well, Matt, come join us on the stage here.
How you doing?
You got yourself a mic, brother.
Oh, shoot. How you doing, man? It's good to see you. Good to see you.
Let's make sure this works.
Is it on?
Get right up on that one.
Perfect.
There it is. All right. Well, I'll introduce the Matt that I know, which really isn't a whole lot. But it's enough because this guy's cool. So I do security over at City Creek Mall, which kind of offers itself to meeting lots of people from all over the world and all walks of life. And so I'm just like patrolling around one day, and I see this guy sitting in a chair making some sweet art. Did you bring any by chance?
I
Oh man!
have a meeting.
All right, all right. Well, I'll let him kind of tell you what kind of art he does, but yeah, I just met him. He was doing some art, and we just started talking about life, and he's a cool guy. So Matt, where are you from? Where have you been, and where are you going?
All right, I moved out here about 2 months ago from Hawaii, Waikiki, and I was doing artwork on the Strip, and I've been doing it most of my life, and I work with marker. I do portraits, families, stuff like that, and I have a unique style. I work on wood, wood with marker. It blends it in real easy, and you're able to um, make almost a picture perfect canvas. It's a unique style that I haven't found anyone else doing, and I would stay up all night in Waikiki and draw on the Strip. Hawaii's a lot different in Utah, but it's a vacation from a vacation coming out here. So I'll probably be out here the winter and go from there. That's my story right now.
Awesome, thanks, Matt.
Yep, thank you.
So, is art or like that kind of style of art, is that something you've done for a long time, or like when did art present itself to you in your life? Probably early.
Well, here's the thing about it. I do it as a hobby, and it's something I love doing. I've done it my entire life, and it's building on faith that you can do something. Because now I'm pretty good at it, and I run across people and they don't even know how to draw a stick figure, and it all starts with that stick figure. And if you put your mind to it, just like anything in life, you can accomplish it. And I got to a point where my stuff is all over the world now. And I do it cheap, and I've done pieces around town. I donate them a lot because I found that we only get what we got by giving it away, which means for me, I've done a couple pieces around town for like the Soup Kitchen and the Wiggins Center and stuff like that. Places don't have money, but for me, giving it away isn't a big deal because I get practice out of doing it. And when you do both of those, you're putting charity above yourself, and it's a big thing nowadays because I think we lose track of that. And for me to do stuff like that, like some pieces will take me 15, 20 hours, and for some people they'll look at something like that as a check, but it's not about that. It's about helping each other out. And if you're able to do something like that in life with whatever you do, anything, whatever your talents are, I find you get a lot farther in life. And ironically, it's gotten me a long ways. It took me a long time to really figure that out, but it's the true meaning of life. And if we keep that in mind, you'll build good friendships, and you'll meet people from all over the world, and you feel good about yourself, and you're able to look each other in the eye and go home at night and feel good about things. So I'm glad to be here, and that's kind of my story right now. So,
See how I could just sit and talk to him for hours at work, but then I'd have to make sure there's no video cameras around, otherwise I get fired. But no, Matt's a great guy. Just for me, being around him just strengthens my faith in God. And I know God's kind of like this taboo topic people don't want to bring into the world. But the truth is, as we'll get into this, this was inspired by God. And for me, any good song that I've written, I believe has been some sort of collaborative effort between myself the spirit. And some people get freaked out hearing that, like, oh, that's weird. Or, well, the truth is, I've talked to so many different artists of different faiths or no faith. A lot of them, like, my friend Carlos put it this way one time. It's like the only thing you can take credit for being a creative person of any kind, you don't have to be an artist. Maybe you love math. Maybe you love, just being a plumber. I don't know. But, like, what the Balance Through Art show is about, it's like, what is your art? Like, and when I say art, I mean it in a sense like, what's your passion? What's that thing you do that comes easily to you, and when you do it, it brings you joy and the people around you joy. And the reason why I bring in, like, the Spirit and God and stuff is what's encouraging for me, and this is what my friend Carlos said, that the only thing artists can take credit for, or creative people, is putting time into their craft, like he talked about, just giving it away, or 15, 20 hours on a project. But what you can't take credit for is that moment where, like, or that continuous moment where you're not thinking about what you're doing anymore. And, like, I just, for instance, for me, like, maybe I'm writing a lyric, and I can be sitting there, this furrowed brow, like, trying to think real hard, like, oh, this lyric's so good. But then it's like, I'll, like, let go, and it's almost like a trance almost, and, like, the right words will just come out. And I'll go back to, like, change them and make it sound better, but I'm like, no, they're good, And he's like, what he talks about is, you take credit for the time you put into it, but then there's, like, this big pool of creativity that none of us have a monopoly on. But it's when you put your time into it, it's like that little, vent opens up and you can pour in. I don't know if you feel the same way sometimes.
If you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So follow your dreams, and I'm telling you right now, I'm almost 40 years old, and I love doing it. And I never regret any of it. Any of it. Because I don't feel like I work. Coming here to Salt Lake is a vacation from a vacation. And when you can say a life is a vacation, you don't plan. Feel good about things, and follow your dreams. You do the best as you can. Positive perspective on everything. Glass isn't half full, half empty. It's always full, overflowing, enough to give away. And those things are important, man. Because if you look at the color red, you see fire and destruction, or you see a rose. With everything in life, it changes everything about who we are. You see people that always hate life. And we're not like that. Always tell yourself you're better than that, and you deserve better than that, because we all do.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, are you ready to dive into this little life cycle thing we got up here? This little guy?
Sure.
Okay. I've kind of gone over this with him, but we'll just see what happens. So, there's 4 areas we find ourselves in life. So ideally, we want to be in a state of balance. That's represented by the North Star. The reason I chose that was ancient travelers, before they had compasses and stuff, they had to know where the North Star was. And the reason why they used the North Star was it's this fixed point that's not going to move, and you can set your maps and everything and set your rudder in relation to that. And a tool that I use in teaching this when I'm, like, during the summertime when I can actually be out in parks and stuff, I don't know if any of you have ever tried slacklining. It's kind of like tightrope walking. It's basically tightrope walking. And I'll just put up a little thing between 2 trees, and what I teach people is they'll get on this thing and they're wobbling, they're shaky, their balance is way off. And I'm like, pick one point on this tree that this rope is attached to and just look at that and walk to that. And people who would swear they had no balance, within half an hour, they've walked 5 or 6 steps. And so it kind of like started clicking. It's like, we need to have something, maybe it's like a set of values or morals or whatever. Like, something that's not going to change like the weather. Something's not going to change like your mood. Some days you're going to wake up and you're going to feel fantastic and excited to go to work or go to vacation. And then other days you don't want to. But you need like that ideal, that worthy ideal, that star you can focus on. But we get off track and we fall into pride. So that's where we'll start this cycle. And I used musical notes to kind of break down each section into two little subcategories. So the fire symbolizes pride. So at some point in our lives, we're born. We're like a little spark, and we turn to a little flame, right? And we start to grow. And in relation to our talents, maybe at some point you decide, wow, I really love soccer. Or, man, I really love poetry. Or I really love chemistry or whatever. You get excited about it, right? And maybe you probably start to get good at it. And usually things we get excited about, we start to put time into and get better at. So kind of the first thing that happens is we start to get boastful, which may not necessarily be a bad thing, but are you boasting of yourself, or are you boasting of, maybe the awesome teachers or the people that went before you that taught you how to do the thing you're doing? And so we'll go through this cycle, let's say, unconsciously. So you don't realize it, but next thing you know, you're like, I'm so good at soccer. I'm so good at the guitar. I'm so good at painting. And next thing you know, you're conceited. It means you're full of yourself. And you're really flaming, like just, yeah, I'm the best. Yeah, exactly. And like the epitome of pride is like it's separation, like I'm it. And in relation to, you know what, we're just going to talk about God, okay? So, because I believe good art comes from him. So, conceited pride is like you're like a coal in a fire, right? And you're glowing, you're doing great. And then you decide, like, well, I want to glow on my own. Like, how long does one coal last outside of the fire? Not very long. And that's what we do when we try to put ourselves in the spot. Like, look how great I am, because I just somehow, like, osmosis all this knowledge from myself, and look how great I am. Like, stupid, right? But we're unconscious, right? And we love glowing bright. But, well, before we dive into the next part, I want to hear some thoughts you have on pride, with boastfulness or conceitedness, or how you feel about how pride affects your art, maybe in a positive way or a negative way, or whatever thoughts you have.
Well, to be honest, I guess the only way to understand confusion is to be confused. And where does that leave us at D? That would be deception.
Deception.
But, like I said earlier, if you put people first, you get past all that. So I'm speechless. But, I'm glad to be here, and it's too bad I didn't bring some of my art. But
Well, you have it on Facebook, right?
yes, I do.
Because we have a computer right here. I'm going to pull it up later,
Yeah, that's fine.
so you guys can get an idea.
I got some wonderful pieces, and I think the best part about my artwork is I sell it cheap, and the reason is because I could get a lot more money than what I asked for, and it's not about that. I enjoy my artwork, going to places where I can walk in and see it on the wall and sit down and look at it, and to me that means more than money. So I'm very proud of what I do, but really I don't brag about it a whole lot. I used to go in Waikiki a lot, and I'd be the kind of guy that would hide out at midnight and draw from like midnight till 3 or 4 in the morning. Real exclusive, you know. And I take a lot of my art and instead of signing my name in the bottom, I would hide it into the picture. That way it would keep copyright infringement and stuff like that down. And for me, I enjoy giving it to my family more than anything, for like Christmas presents and stuff like that. And I think I'm on the right track with all this because it isn't about the money. It's just a hobby for me, and I feel good about that. You know, when we feel good about something, it's a good thing in life.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. All right. So you'll notice as we fall into the next section. Whoa. You're good. So Matt said deception. I think that's a great way to look at it. And I guess my interpretation of it, you could also view it as a defeat. So we go from this prideful, conceited, glowing, I'm the best in the world and no one's ever been better than me. And all of a sudden you get defeated. You know, maybe if you're in the sports, you break your ankle, or you're playing the guitar and you get arthritis and you can't play anymore, or whatever. And along with this defeat, there's now this ego death. So your pride is basically equated to ego in this picture. So that song I played for you, the Fragile song, I wrote that after an experience I had where me and a few friends had a summer activity plan. We were going to hike the Grand Canyon. And about 2 weeks before the trip, I went off a rope swing into a river I thought was deep enough, and my ankle basically exploded. And so, like, I was, defeated. My ego was crushed. And I get really butthurt when I get injured because I love running around and stuff. But it was like kind of this moment where while my ankle was healing, all I could really do was play guitar. And that's kind of how music has always been for me. It's more been like, the side chick, with like being really active was like, my main love. And that's kind of how that relation with music was for the longest time. Was I would just be really active until I'd hurt myself, and then while I was healing, I would just play the guitar. And so in the case of that song, I was obviously feeling really fragile and weak, but I realized, like, who am I to get so angry when I get hurt, when most of the time, for one, it's my fault, being irresponsible. And two, like, this body, like, isn't even mine. Like, I didn't create my body. It was a gift given to me by my parents and God. And all we are is stewards over it. And so what I realized, with that song, like, the lyric is, I'm fragile, I'm human after all, my spirit is strong, but my body tends to fall. And kind of the main message I got out of that was, my spirit is like the essence of who I am. Like, that is untouched by ego. And so at the basic core of who I am, like, I'm God's creation, and I'm someone's son. And so I started keeping that in mind more when I go on my adventures, because I kind of went on a lot of really reckless mountain adventures through my time. And I started thinking about that more. And so to tie in this symbol down here, so we fall into a state of humility. And the fish symbolizes the water that puts out the fire of our pride. And it's also that familiar little fish we see on the back of cars. And basically what this means is when we fall into that state of humility, we often just start sinking. You know, especially if that defeat resulted in like some part of you breaking. Like you're unable to swim at this point, and you just sink until you hit the bottom. And, you know, how are you going to get out of that situation? So the reason I use this symbolizes the Savior. And you don't have to be religious to, you know, understand the concept of a Savior. Say you fall into a well that's 100 feet deep, and the walls are perfectly smooth. The only thing that's going to get you out of there is some sort of Savior. Someone's going to have to reach a rope down there and pull you out. And so that's where this comes in. So we get pulled back up to the surface, and at this point we're feeling fragile, you know, and we're at the base of a mountain. The reason I chose a mountain is, well, I like mountains. But, you know, mountains like that symbolic thing, like it's this obstacle. In life, we have obstacles we have to get over. And when we're feeling fragile, it's really hard. It's really hard to climb those mountains. But when we can rely on a greater power, pretty much anyone who's ever climbed Mount Everest didn't just run up it by themselves. They had a team. They had Sherpas. They had someone who's gone before them to show the way. And you can view greater power as the universe, God, a community, your family, friends. But it's remembering that we're not alone in our trials. And when we can rely on those greater powers, we can get to the top of the mountain. You have any thoughts on that, Matt?
I think it's great. No, you're right on the button.
Let me use the mic.
Yeah, it's don't fool yourself. It's all about God and Jesus. I came all the way out here from Hawaii, not just to move to Utah, to middle of nowhere. I came out here to get baptized, and I'm a latecomer with all this. And you know, I had lots of problems in my life, between drugs, alcohol, you know, living in Waikiki with women, and it's not about none of that. And I gave up all that stuff to do this because it's the truth. And my story is a lot different than most people's, but I'll share my testimony some other time. But don't fool yourself. We're here for a reason. And for me to say that, for me to give up a surfboard, to move out in the middle of nowhere, I'm telling you right now, is very serious. And God is good. You know, and that's the thing about it. Life's so short. Here I am almost 40 years old, and I look back at things, and I'm like, where did it go? And you know what I came to realize is it's about memories, true memories, that count the most. And you know, for years I was into nothing but drugs, alcohol, crime, everything that Christ is against, and that would make me an antichrist. And I'm not that way anymore. So anyway, it's all legit. And if you take it at an early age, you don't have to see that kind of life, and you live in righteousness. And it's, for me, living in sin my entire life, it's no way to go. You feel dirty, you act dirty, you kind of blow off everybody, and it's not the right thing to do. So, you know, be grateful for your friends and family, and don't sell them short. It's what it's all about. You do those things, and good things will follow you. It's an important message, and all ears open. Make the most of what you got.
Thank you,
It's
Matt.
not all about surfboards either, or snowboards. It's about each other, man. And for a guy to say that, I've been to prison twice, and I've done max time, and it's shitty. It's a really sad way to live. And you know, I've met people in there. They go in there with the mind frame of I'm the toughest guy in there, and to make a long story short, they never get out. When they walk in with a year or two or something like that. So you don't want to be that way. But anyway, aloha and mahalo, and Utah's a great state, man. It's really been good to me.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we've just about made it full circle. So, as we conquer our mountains, and sounds like Matt's conquered a lot of mountains. It's amazing. From the top of a mountain, you gain perspective. It's a great accomplishment. But the greatest thing for me is I'm able to look back down at where I came from, and my car is a dot. My house is a dot. It's a speck. But when you're in your car, or you're in your house, or your place of work, it's not a speck, and it's really real and really frustrating, and there's a lot of drama and yada, yada, yada. On the top of the mountain, it's a speck. And there's some guy on an airplane 30,000 feet above you, and you're a speck. And maybe he probably doesn't even see you. You're not even a speck. You don't even exist. And so these mountains, have helped give me perspective of, where I'm at in life and how this really is just a blink of an eye. How many of us in our growing age was where have the years gone? Like Matt said, it is about memories. And so we gain perspective, and we can't live at the top of the mountain forever. You can't ride the wave forever. You can't just stay high forever. You have to come down. And so when we finally get back down to earth, we're re-entering this balanced state, and we realize that there's sharps and flats in life, that there's hard times and easier times, that there's day and night, there's good and evil, there's black and white, there's a better way to live and a worse way to live. And that's knowledge. So we gain some knowledge as we go through the journey. And then the way we stay balanced is simply accountability. One of our favorite words, especially at this age in our life, where we're out of our parents' houses, most of us. And we get to make all our own decisions, but we always wanted, and we realize we don't. It sucks. Just want people to tell us what to do, like we have our whole lives. But no, that's the beginning of growing up and having freedom. And so, a little illustration I like to do to show this. So, when we stop trying in life, we're just down here in the humility area, right? If we just let go and give into all of our selfish desires and everything, that's just kind of where we end up. Just bounce back and forth between defeat and ego death. And maybe we roll up into here a little bit, maybe into there. But then we just that's just where we settle. But my friend showed me, so as you're going through that journey of strength, imagine this big, heavy beam of self-accountability, whatever you want to call it. He's right here is the heaviest it's going to be. And that's that cusp where it's you're fragile, but you're want to go on your own strength. It's you're in the gym trying to get that last little push on the bar. But when you do give it over to a greater power, it's and then once you're here, it's balanced. It's imagine putting a beam, a 2x4 on the ground. It's just going to sit there until the wind blows. So then you just correct it, right? Then the wind blows again, and if you fix it, and your crazy younger brother's and you're get off. And what's amazing is once you go through that work of getting back to that balance state, and we've all felt it, like, once you're, like, living how, like, you know, you're going to the gym and eating all the right food, and you're getting 8 hours of sleep a night, like I'm sure we all are, it's easy. Like, it's easy to be just balanced and happy. But when your beam's been balanced for a really long time, we start to boast. Like, look at my beam. It's just standing on its own. I'm going to go walk over here now. You just stay right there, beam. They're over there, you know, at the club, partying it up. Woo, yeah. Well, why are you so happy? Oh, my beam's just standing up over there. It's great. Then you get home, your beam's toppled over, smashed into pieces because you weren't accountable over it. And so, and then some final symbolism, this weird little green guy. It's just a guy standing like this. We don't do this very often. Maybe take some yoga class and, like, it's okay to do there. Basically means we need to be open to life. We need to be open to every experience that comes our way, even the hard ones. Because when is this going to solve any of our problems? Like, Mom, I just pooped myself. Please wipe me. You know, like, no one's here to wipe you anymore. All right? You wipe yourself. So we need to be open. And quick illustration. So in my stupid mountain adventures, I often go free climbing, which just means rock climbing without any ropes, which is really dumb. And I remember this one time I'm climbing. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's so cool. Who needs ropes? And then rocks kind of start to crumble, and I'm like, oh, dear. And there's, like, this little scrubby, like, bush just sticking out of the rock face. I'm like, and it has me. I'm like, good. And I was just like, I'm like looking at this thing, and I'm like, man, that is one hardy little plant. And I climb up to the top, and I'm just kind of sitting there thinking. I'm like, that plant could grow anywhere. Like, a lot places where it'd be a lot easier to grow. But, like, that little guy was just doing its best to live, just digging its roots into this rock to find some moisture and whatever. And I'm just like, I started looking at, like, all the nature around me. And, like, when do you see a plant just, like, half trying to live? You know, half of it could be dead, but, like, that one good leaf is like, ugh! Like, reaching out to the sun, like, feed me. And it's digging its last little root in the ground, like, ugh! Like, I'm trying to live. Like, you don't see anything in nature just trying to live. Like, everything in nature, it's the survival of the fittest. Everything is trying its best to be what it is. That's why we love nature. Nothing's confused out there. That pine tree is like, I'm the best pine tree. I'll do my best. And that deer is just like, I'm a deer. And then you look at us people, and we're like, who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? I'm going to curl up in my corner now. Like, yeah, we don't have all the answers. But what we do know, and where we can all start from all walks of life, is we're freaking human beings, okay? I don't care if you're confused about your gender. Like, you're still a human being. And what do human beings need? You need water. You need food. You need shelter. You need love. Well, yeah, you do need love. You need to poop. You need to exercise. Like, these are the basics, right? But how many of us are even doing that? Like, yeah, we all live in America. We've all had our basic needs met our whole lives. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We'd be dead. But, like, we've never really had to work for those. Or maybe you have. But long story short, our basic needs have been met. Okay? But how are we meeting them? Are we drinking, oh, well, there's water and Coke, and I drink Coke all the time, so I'm healthy, Patrick. He loves Coke. So start there. Okay, drink the best water you can find. And if you can't afford it, find something that fits in your budget. What are you eating? Are you eating Pringles every day? Like, we're a human being. Like, we need food. We need good food. If you can get good food, get the best food you can get. That's the thing. You get the best you can get. Or if you have faith, you can ask for the best, and it'll probably appear. So we get those basic needs met. But it's almost like once all those are met, then you're like, well, now what? And that's where I've been my whole life. I've realized, because I spent time being homeless for a couple months because I wanted to see what it was like. And it was great at some points. And the day I stopped being homeless was when I had food poisoning and I didn't have a toilet. And that was terrible. And we all know this stuff, right? That's the most frustrating part. So our whole lives, our basic needs have been met. And what are we left with? We're left with time to think. We're left with time to ask ourselves, what do I want to be? A lot of people in the world don't even have that luxury. A lot of people in this world, it is, where is my next meal going to come from? And can I even get enough food for my family? We have the luxury of all those needs are met, and it's like, what do I want to be? And then we get depressed and sad and, don't think our life's worth living because we haven't figured out who we want to be or what we want to do. But be grateful that you're at least healthy and alive. So from there, that's where balance through our thing comes from. Think about what's that thing you do that brings you joy when you do it. And when you share it with people, they get joy too. And if you haven't found that yet, it's okay. Think about something you did when you were a kid. In my case, that didn't work, so I had to keep digging deeper. But what we're meant to do is to discover those gifts that God has given us. And then once you've discovered that and you can start sharing them with people, you don't work another day in your life. Wait, what? I don't know. That's the beautiful thing is we don't have to work. And I think where a big thing where that comes from for me is so the last little bit of this symbol. So when we're upright facing our goals, you can see the guy doing the yoga move. But even if we're pointed down south in humility, now you can imagine a sea turtle. Here's his shell. Here's his little flippers, his tail, and that's his head. And what's he diving after, huh? A lot of times you hear we often have to, hit rock bottom to learn our lesson that we can't do it on our own. Well, that's not a great way to live. I'm sure you know that from experience. I know it from experience. We think it's almost like we test grace. I'm just going to see just how far down.
People hit rock bottoms in different ways.
Oh, yeah.
People with families, people at work, in completely different ways than going to jail or something like that. I've met a lot of people that are so stressed out about just going to work that they hate life, and you can see it in their eyes and the way they carry themselves. And, so different walks of life, you can see these things. And so rock bottom is different for everybody.
For sure, for sure.
And the idea is getting back up and holding yourself high. And good things follow you wherever you go.
Absolutely. And what I want to get at here is, I know we're probably running over on time. Okay. We're right about where we need to be. So I talked about this cycle as if we're going through it unconsciously. We can go through it consciously. So say you like go through some hard trial or some like crazy learning experience, you get a new job or whatever, and you learn a bunch of stuff, and you finally get to that place where like you're balanced and like it makes sense and it's easy. Well, like in life, you're either growing or you're disintegrating. Like someone once told me, life is like running up a down escalator. As soon as you stop running, you just start going back down. And so to go through this consciously, so like say you like learn some new skill, or like you like get good at something and it finally like makes sense and you're balanced. Well, like learn more. But like don't do this in like a self-destructive cycle. Do it consciously, like, you know, sometimes it's good to be boastful and like excited about something. But like don't be boastful in your own strength. Be boastful in God's strength. Be boastful in, maybe you got some great teacher. Be like, you're the best teacher ever. High five. You know, don't be conceited, full of yourself. Be full of love, you know. When it comes to defeat and humility, don't let outside circumstances like defeat you to get you to be humble. Get on your knees and humble yourself, you know. Ego death. Like we should never have an ego. We should always be stripping that away. You know, they say the rolling stone gathers no moss. Well, if you stop rolling, the world starts to grow on you. Like, you got to keep moving. You're fragile. Like, this relationship we should never forget. That's what that song's about. Like, the strength in knowing the truth about yourself. I know I'm weak, and that's the truth. But since I know I'm weak, there's my strength. I'm a fragile man made strong through God's hands. So remember that. And then the final thing is, you know, just remember what you know and do it. A lot of us, we could not read another book in our life, but if we could remember what we know and do our best to just live that and do it, we wouldn't have to read anything. We'd be fine. There's billionaires out there that never even made it halfway through high school because they know how to do things. They know how to do the little things that they know, and they're like that little plant, you know. Larry H. Miller, he has not hotels, but like car dealerships everywhere, movie theaters. I read his book a few years ago. The guy that I don't think made it through high school. He's just like, I want to have a car dealership, and it's going to be the best one. And he was basically his whole life, he was just running scared. He's like this little plant, right? Just trying to live, trying to grow. But like, he really wanted to. And then he realized at some point, wow, if I open up another car dealership, my friend Joe, who doesn't have a job, could work at my car dealership. And then he started making all this money, and he just started giving it away to people and building things, making this place better. Like, I used to be I didn't like money, you know. I was content living in a tent, just living off the land, like, you know, just taking care of myself. Then I realized one day, like, if I can do something I love and make a lot of money doing it, I can get my own needs met, my family needs met, and then just give it away. Or, like, support some great cause. So, like, don't live just well enough to take care of yourself or someone else or a couple kids. Live so well that, like, the glory of God can be manifest through what you're doing.
And sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all.
It's true.
You know, it was funny, but I was in a meeting right before I came over here, and I heard this one guy talk, and he was like, you know, what do we think about miracles today? You know, waking up and you're alive, that kind of thing. And he was like, you know what? What do you think about this? Do you think a man can juggle 3 chickens? And I thought about that. Would that be a miracle? Get 3 grown chickens and try juggling it. Well, think about it. Possible? I don't know, but I thought about it for like the last hour, and it hit me because, you know, I thought about it. And, you know, that's God right there for you. He made the chickens. You can juggle them. I
Absolutely. Well, it's Friday night. I'm sure you guys got some fun plans. It is. Got to get up nice and early. But I'll end with a fun little song to kind of wake you up for the road. And thanks again, guys, for coming out. And Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. This song hopefully kind of sums up all this. But it's not as sad as my other ones. Also known as Sleepin' In by Austin. Sleeping in till 10 o'clock, never even looking at my cell phone clock. Why wake up at 7 o'clock? I have no place to be. Get the call from Billy B, manager at my job, you see. Supposed to call in before 9:03. I'm still asleep in bed. Yesterday I hit my head, boarding down the hill. Lucky I ain't dead. Should have listened to what Mama said. Wear a helmet next time. Had I worn a helmet this last time, I have no reason to write this rhyme. Even though my head would have been fine, wouldn't have a song to sing. 'Cause I love being free to do as I please. Even though I have responsibility, I do as I please. 'Cause I love being free to do as I please. Even though I have responsibility, I do as I please. But at times I wish that my life wasn't so free. 'Cause when you are as free as me, it can get hard to see. Priorities I used to have, now up a tree. Hidden from view, now I'm feeling blue. Does anyone know what I should do? Does anyone have a clue? I wanna be happy like the rest of you. Wanna be